Hi, my name is Zach Taylor. I am a student at the Oklahoma School of Science and Math, and my paper's title is Turkey's Collective Responsibility over the Armenian Genocide. I'd like to thank Coastal Carolina for allowing me to submit my paper and present it as well. So, this paper started out as a Western Civilizations term paper assignment. I was originally going to pick a controversial topic, predominantly Middle East, and just recount the events. So I landed on the genocide. But then I found David Miller, and after I started wondering, with the European Union events, do they really need to accept the fault for the genocide, and is that really going to help them with their ascension in the EU? So I thought of David Miller's outcome responsibility and inherited national responsibility, and I decided to use the Armenian genocide as an experimentum crucis, really to explain that there is no justification for holding either the Ottoman Empire or the nation of Turkey responsible for the killings that were actually carried out by the Committee of Union Progress, or also known as the Young Turks. So I'll start with some historical background. This is the Ottoman Empire as it expanded. If you can see it on the camera, right around here, it's lightish blue dashed pattern. It's the Turkish Republic, and that's really about the time when the genocide happened, right before it turned into the Republic. So the first waves of Armenian killing started in 1894 with the massacres under Sultan Abdul Hamid II. They were known as the Hamidian massacres, and those ended in 1896. And after that, the regime of Sultan Abdul Hamid II was attacked by the Young Turks, right here, in 1908. And they brought their pan-Turkism to the empire, which is just a nationalistic movement. And it helped bring the overall opinion of the Dhimmi population, which is the name given to anyone who is really Jewish, Greek, Christian, Assyrian, or Armenian, and it just brought their opinion down even further than it already was. The Young Turks actually accused the Armenians of allying with Russia, a nation with whom Turkey has already had a rocky relationship with after the Crimean War and the Balkan rebellions. They accused the Armenians of trying to claim Anatolia for their own people, and right there in the red, that's where the Armenians were, and that's the east side of Anatolia. This is right around the time during which World War I broke out, so if that gives you a time frame. The killings peaked around 1915, whenever 1 million Armenians and non-Muslims were starved, exiled, forcibly marched, and just generally murdered in the Ottoman Empire. These killings were almost unseen because of the focus toward the World War. So after a series of failed attempts to try the Committee of Union Progress, or the CUP, an international court and an Ottoman courts martial during the Treaty of Paris, the Entente powers didn't know really how the Ottoman minorities were going to end up. Even post-war Grand Vizier Delmat Ferid Pasha agreed that only the few thugs that led the CUP, Enver Pasha, Talat Pasha, Simal Pasha, were really responsible for the killings. So in a meeting between Ataturk and Grand Vizier Ali Riza Pasha, the Grand Vizier during the war, an agreement was reached that basically they shouldn't be concerned with the justification of the killings for now. They should just worry about trying them and getting it over with. But once the trials turned towards the issue of partitioning Anatolia, the Turkish government and Nationalistic Party decided to just drop it because the partitioning would mean a death sentence for Turkey. The parties initially interested in prosecuting those responsible, Britain, France, the US, and the remainder of the Entente powers, eventually abandoned the punishment and the human rights question over the Armenian genocide until recently, with the question of Turkey's ascension in the European Union. And that's where David Miller comes into play. Miller even mentions the Armenian genocide once or twice in a few works of his, and he would more likely say, because of national inheritance, that Turkey would be responsible for the genocide, but I'll discuss that later. He starts with differences between moral responsibility and outcome responsibility. So he splits outcome responsibility up into two classifications. The first one, if the person in question has greater or lesser resources than they should have. So he uses the example of a gambler who squanders all his money, and obviously, easy enough, the outcome is the loss of money, and the gambler is in full control of whether or not he can get his money back. And the second classification is if the person in question imposes an unnecessary cost on an innocent party. They must compensate for that, for those losses. So his example is an arsonist. The outcome, if he burns another house down, is that the house is lost, and the person whose house is lost must be compensated by the arsonist. So in outcome responsibility, he also says that there must be a connection between a motive and an outcome. So in the case of the arsonist, his or her intention was to burn the house, and his or her intention was reached when they reached his or her outcome accordingly. So the point at which moral responsibility differs is whether the person can avoid the outcome. So if not, they're not able to be held morally responsible for the outcome. These two are attributed to individual responsibility. So after that, Miller gradually makes a connection between that, or individual responsibility, and national responsibility. So he uses two more models to explain the responsibility of individuals in a group. And the first one is a like-minded group, so it's really like it's a true mob mentality. He uses the example of an angry mob who is rampaging through a town, just pillaging and destroying everything. Now, even though they might have different single motives, like to get the town back, get revenge, or like show superiority, they still have the same general intention to destroy the town. And he's basically saying that every member of this group had a part in doing it. So attributing that to the Armenian genocide, he's saying that every member of the CUP has a part in killing the Armenians, even if a member had an insignificant job, such as like a record keeper or something. And the member would be just as responsible because their general intention is to minimize or destroy the minority population. Now the second model is the cooperative practice model. Small members of a group, or minorities in a nation, have an equal contribution to the outcome as the majority, even if they don't agree with the outcome. So the minority benefits from the nation, even if they don't agree with its decisions. Like they live off of the nation. And they also have equal opportunity to voice their opinions and affect the outcome of the nation's actions. That's his model. Those are the criteria laid out in his model. He says, while it is not moral to blame them for the nation's wrongdoings, it is also not immoral to hold them accountable for the outcomes of the nation's wrongdoings. So, another example, minorities are working in a law firm who deserve equal salary, hours, benefits such as health insurance, and influence on the choices of the company. But when the company does anything the minorities may think is wrong, the minorities are still responsible for the outcome if they profit from the firm. So according to this model, assuming the criteria match, the non-Muslim population had just as much power to prevent the genocide as the Young Turks, which of course I disagree with, and I guess you'll see. Miller points out that these groups overlap in the real world commonly. In the real world, a group can share collective responsibility by being part of a like-minded group that caused the outcome, being a part of cooperative practice by helping to produce the outcome, or just both. So with both groups, even a member that does nothing passively supports his fellow members, and that's like-minded, and gets some sort of benefit from being in a group, and that's cooperative practice. This must mean that virtually every member of the nation of Turkey would hold some fraction of national responsibility for the genocide because of their profiting from the nation's achievements, like language, traditions, and goods, even if they are morally innocent citizens. In the case of the Armenian genocide, the cooperative practice model is almost entirely inapplicable because the criteria doesn't match. I mean, the non-Muslim Armenian population, being mistreated, looked down upon, seen as inferior, they had no social impact on the majority. They were only given what the empire called religious freedom, which, of course, was really not there. Because they did not have equal opportunity, like the minorities in the law firm, it is impossible to attribute Miller's cooperative practice model to the Demi population. And in order for a group to be responsible for an outcome, he also says that for an outcome that's more than just casual. So like this mass race cleansing that the Young Turks went through. The casual component must also exist. So in this case, the casual component of the cooperative practice model is missing. So therefore, the nation of Turkey cannot hold the collective responsibility recognized by Miller's cooperative practice model. So we can summarize that Miller conceives a nation to be responsible for the following: any incident that the contemporary population can or could not control, any incident that a previous member of the nation caused and is currently opposed by the modern inhabitants, or any sacrifices the nation has made by opposing this incident and or the people who caused it. So attributing this to the Young Turks means attributing it to the entire Muslim population of the Ottoman Empire that contributed to the outcome, regardless of their involvement with the actual actions. An example, just by me, is an innocent non-Muslim citizen who is part of the CUP and internally opposes their endorsements, but doesn't do anything about it. He just slides back into the crowd for irrelevant reasons. According to Miller's models, the citizen is just as responsible as the CUP leader. However, the assumption that this non-Muslim citizen has just as much control over this outcome is mistaken. Like I said earlier, the Dhimmi population, the population that the non-Muslim citizen is a part of, had basically no power in politics whatsoever. So once this realization is made, Miller's external view of outcome responsibility laid out here does not work in this situation, meaning that the Ottoman Empire as a whole could not have been blamed for the actions carried out by the CUP. So that takes us to Turkey's inherited responsibility. Miller believes that just like a nation inherits culture, traditions, language, etc., a nation inherits whatever debts they owe. So if a nation is going to acknowledge the benefits of land, political policies, or anything else their predecessors have obtained, the nation must acknowledge the negatives, including historical injustices. And then Miller also has these 4 claims to remedy these past injustices. And if these claims are invalid, a nation need not remedy the past injustice. That includes claims of restitution, claims based on the idea of unjust enrichment, claims based on the idea of compensable historical wrong, and then claims for setting the historic record straight. For the first 2 claims, the contemporary nation of Turkey must have benefited from their ancestors' injustices. So no one in the nation of Turkey actually justifiably owns any assets or property from the genocide, so those 2 are invalid. In addition, the nation has received only backlash from the rest of the world. I mean, the European Union, the US, and scholars all around the world. Besides its sense of nationalism, the political representatives of the modern Republic of Turkey can't even gain any diplomatic advancement with this public denial of responsibility. So, for the 3rd and 4th claims, they assert that the present people in Turkey are harmed by the historic wrong, and the nation doesn't distinguish the historic record. Fitting these claims requires Turkey to identify with their Ottoman ancestors, as well as support their actions entirely. Turkey has no control over what their ancestors did. They are in a completely different century and generation, and the Young Turks political movement has diffused. There are no Young Turks left. Also, even though Article 301 of the Turkish Penal Code prevents the insulting of Turkishness while talking about the genocide, it doesn't actually ever state that the genocide did not exist, or denial of occurrence. The general population is attuned to history, so they know it happened. This must mean that the present-day nation of Turkey had no way of preventing the genocide, especially because it's a successor state. And the entire Ottoman Empire, mainly the Dhimmi, had no way to influence the CUP's actions unless they had personal associations with the group. And because outcome responsibility cannot be attributed to the Ottoman Empire, and the claims to remedy past injustices are invalid, and Turkey need not accept this inherited responsibility, David Miller's theories are undermined. So, that's my paper. Thank you.